Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Duke Oishi.
And I'm Chris Lethem.
In our show this time, we'll take a look at design thinking and a special workshop that was presented on it at UH Manoa.
Design thinking is very powerful and getting more and more popular in business, government, and education. So you do need to know what it is and how it can help you.
Last week, in preparation for visiting the workshop, ThinkTech host Jay Fidel enjoyed a talk show with Ian Kitajima of Ocean It, a major evangelist for design thinking in Hawaii.
Design thinking is actually not a new idea. It's been around for a very long time. But we got introduced to design thinking through Stanford University and IDEO, where it's kind of the man there.
IDEO now?
So David Kelly is the founder of IDEO and the design school at Stanford. But how I got introduced, or how Ocean It got introduced to it, is via Pat Sullivan, the founder of Ocean It. His son, Matthew, went to the graduate school in design at Stanford University. And so Pat had sent around an article about design thinking from Harvard Business Review. And it sat on my nightstand for quite a while, but when I finally picked it up, it was a very short article. After reading it, it was like the light bulbs went off, because what they had done at Stanford and IDEO was they'd taken the process of what people would think is outside the box thinking. And always, I would hear that term all the time, and I would just be so upset, because it's like, if I knew how to think outside the box, I'd already be doing it. So I would always ask people, okay, so you say that term, so how do you do it? How do you actually think outside the box? How do you see the world? How do you approach things so that you can see things nobody else can see? I want to learn that. But no one could explain it to me. But in this article, it actually talked about how they took the process of outside the box thinking and creativity and innovation, and how they had put it into a 5-step process. And I thought, wow, this is genius.
So but what's the point of it? I mean, when I think of it, I mean, just only, sort of relate this to the common vernacular. So outside the box to me means creative, something you wouldn't ordinarily think of.
Right.
Where you react, it's more like in terms of the reaction, wow, that is something I wouldn't have thought of. Mm-hmm. That's out of the box thinking.
Right.
You get points for that, and if you keep on doing that, you'll be rich. It'll all work really swell. We need you. We need you to think out of the box. We don't want you to be a bureaucrat and a slug. We want you to think of new things.
Right. Okay, so I think one of the things that was very important was design thinking is human-centered. People can think really radical ideas. Like, I can just sit here, you and I can just brainstorm all these great ideas that may have no relevance actually to people's lives. So what design thinking is doing is a human-centered problem-solving approach. So what it really is, it's focusing your attention on first understanding what the needs of your users are.
We found that design thinking is a human-centered problem-solving process. It's used by some of the world's greatest innovators, Apple, Google, FedEx, and GE, as well as leaders in all levels of government and education who are transforming their organizations and their organizational cultures. It's impressive.
The workshop at UH was dedicated to show attendees how the design thinking mindset and philosophy work, and to have them experience the process of designing a product with a design thinking partner.
The workshop was a one-day interactive design challenge in which everybody got a chance not only to observe, but also to participate and experience how design thinking captures the essence of innovation and puts it into an iterative process that can achieve great outcomes in problem solving.
In this workshop, the participants engaged with and experienced each of the 5 steps in the design thinking process. These 5 steps are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test.
Participants also had an opportunity to experience the design thinking mindset and philosophy, which is human-centered, biased in favor of action, based on radical collaboration, includes a culture of prototyping, involves active presentation, and is at all times mindful of the design thinking process and those 5 steps.
The facilitators at the workshop were Ravi Pare, Natalie Waters, and Ian Kitajima of Ocean It. They lend their design thinking skills on advanced research projects for the Marines, ONR, the Department of Energy, NOAA, and the state of Hawaii, namely the Department of Education, the Department of Health, the Broadband Initiative, the Office of Information Management, and the Office of Planning, and the City and County of Honolulu, and many others.
These facilitators have facilitated design thinking workshops for over 2,000 people. Natalie has facilitated numerous workshops and boot camps, including the first intermediate level boot camp in Hawaii in 2014. Ravi is Oceanit's design thinking guru and is a graduate of Stanford's renowned D School. Ian is the co-founder of the annual Design Thinking Hawaii Boot Camp and is a longtime evangelist for design thinking in and out of Oceanit.
So we visited the workshop and took a look at what was going on there.
So you had the interviews done, so we will do something called as unpacking, where you had this massive amount of data which was mostly conversation based, but there are some sentences in there which we call as nugget. It's not that they are trying to lie to you or something, but there is some drama going on there. You want to dig deeper and find out more.
The way we'll have you guys do this, we call this an empathy map. And so you guys probably did about 4 interviews. So each person will, as they go through, someone will like start kind of talking about the interview. Maybe you have some notes, reading off your notes, and then the other people in the team will do what we call headline. So just what you can fit on a Post-it, kind of headline what they're saying or what stands out to you. So yeah, while one person's talking and unpacking the interview, you headline it, and then you'll put it up on the empathy map. Like right at the top of the empathy map, right? Who is your user? Be descriptive, anything, because that will go into your point of view statement. And it also can help you, as you're doing that, you'll think like, oh, you'll probably come up with other insights and stuff on your own as a team. Okay, so go ahead, and since we were thinking since it's kind of cold in here, if you guys want, you can take your board outside. It might be kind of windy. It's an experiment. Or you can just stay in here. I know some of you still have to eat lunch. So go ahead and get started, and we'll come around and help you. Well, this morning we started off by doing kind of a quick run through of the whole design thinking process. You know, the whole thing about learning design thinking is doing it many, many times, and then it just becomes more ingrained. So we did a real fast run, and then we started them off with the first step of empathy, and we had them go out and do interviews. So we have a main design challenge for the day, which is improving campus safety, and they went out and just did interviews. So that's kind of where we left off before lunch.
The idea behind the challenge is more to walk them through the process rather than find an absolute solution. It's about walking them through this uncomfortable process almost, because the more you are familiar and more you use it, you become comfortable and it becomes a behavior rather than a step 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Is it like riding a bicycle?
Yes, definitely.
Always remember?
You will always remember.
Wait a minute. Well, that's what practicing is about. I mean, you don't learn how to ride a bicycle the first time you try.
Yeah, but once you learn it, you won't forget it, right? It becomes ingrained in you.
Yeah, and that's where like practice comes, because now you know kind of where you're going to be going. So when you interview, you are now more aware. You're trying to think of like, oh, what does that mean?
Depends from people to people, but often I've seen most people getting stuck in this particular stage where it's harder to hone in on one particular statement, one particular problem, and it's a lot of frustration at this stage where you're trying to hone in and choose one particular thing when you have heard so many different things from people you have interviewed. But believe me, the more you try it, it becomes more comfortable, and it's not necessary that you be right the first time around, because the process will self-correct itself. You will get a chance to test your ideas and refine them continuously. You are trying to reframe the problem. It's like as if you are looking at the world through this frame, and every time you reframe it, you are looking from a different perspective, right? So it's like looking through a viewfinder. Like every time you synthesize the scene differently, you learn different. You think about it differently. So, okay, define what. I mean, this is just an explanation about what it is. Construct a point of view, a unique, concise reframing of the problem that is grounded in user needs and insights. These are not based on your opinions, but based on what you heard from the user.
What happens is when you ideate, when you brainstorm, is things can go in a really different direction because you're trying to build off of each other. So if I were to say like better campus lighting, then Ravi or somebody else might come in like with some, like, drones fly above with lights attached to them, and then somebody else might come in. I mean, you try to like build off of each other's ideas so it can really take off into something that's where the innovation lies. Where they are right now is like, that's like the crux. This is the hardest part. And then after that, it gets more exciting. It kind of just flows with the energy of the group. And yeah, you get to work with your hands more when you start building things. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. A lot of times when we teach a workshop, we'll have them pick like, each person in the team gets, stickers, and they can vote on what they think is the most breakthrough, what they think is most likely to please the user, and then what they think is the most easy to build tomorrow, And so there's a lot of different categories you could choose to select it, but then you can usually kind of gauge, okay, this one has like a lot of people voted for this, let's build that one.
We actually have a woman who came in from Toronto. She came specifically, she's been hearing about design thinking. She travels to Korea, Toronto, New York, and she has been hearing about design thinking, and she saw a posting online on Facebook, of all places, about today's workshop here at the University of Hawaii. And she came to the workshop specifically. She flew to Hawaii, not on her way to somewhere else, but specifically to come to this workshop that we're hosting here at the university. So today's design challenge was around how to improve campus safety. That was the design challenge. The design challenge we're going to do during the summertime at the 5th annual boot camp will be about how to improve the voter experience. How to get more people to come out and vote. And that's a really complex issue, because it's not just simply we're going to advertise more, or it's a way more complex issue than what we're just seeing right now, right? I think if you just say, well, we're going to just come up with a bunch of ideas to make the voter experience more engaging, that's not enough. It's something else. It's not obvious. And that's where design thinking works so well. I think when the problem is complex, it's difficult. It's, the thing you think is the obvious answer, but intuitively inside, you know that, no, that's not the answer. It's got to be much more complex than that, because people have been trying for decades to improve and get people engaged and come out to vote, but it's still not working. So at some level, we don't fully understand what is the issue.
As you can see, the participants were all immersed in the problem-solving process and working hard to learn how they could use it outside the experience of the workshop.
We're sure they will. This will have changed them, but it's also something you need to practice. They'll probably need to come back and do other workshops and participate in other such programs, like the Design Thinking Bootcamp that Ian Kitajima is organizing for June.
After repeated and continuing exposure, they and their cohorts will know more and have a better understanding of design thinking. And they will be able to guide and govern their decision process around it. The more people do this, the more our community will be able to solve difficult problems, and therefore the better for all of us.
So design thinking is not only an experience you should have, but it's a discipline you should encourage in others, including your friends and coworkers, and of course, your kids.
We want as many people in our community as possible doing critical thinking out of the box and coming up with good and creative outcomes. This benefits not only them individually, not only the organizations they are associated with, but all of us. And now let's take a look at our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
The big news is that ThinkTech has launched 2 new shows, the Daily ThinkTech News with Donna Blanchard and Radar News with Sachi Slomov. Here are examples.
I'm Donna Blanchard, and this is your ThinkTech News for Tuesday, March 10th, 2015. Today in a news conference at the United Nations, Hillary Rodham Clinton spoke about the fact that she used a personal rather than an official email account, which would have stored all of her work emails for record preservation while she was in office. She said that using her personal account was legally allowed and that the vast majority of her emails were sent to government employees with .gov addresses and would therefore be automatically captured on government servers. She admitted that in retrospect, she wishes she had used a .gov address, but thought it more convenient to use her own. She said that she didn't want to carry two devices serving two separate accounts and therefore opted for only one, her personal account. She said she and her team have gone through her emails, which have been stored on a personal server, and said they have been turned over the emails, all that were possibly related to work, to the State Department, and have asked that they be available to the public. She noted that there were no security breaches. She also took this opportunity to denounce the move by Senate Republicans to send a letter to Iran's leadership explaining that any agreement reached with President Obama could be altered later without congressional approval. Mrs. Clinton asked what the purpose of that letter could have been and answered that it was either meant to help the Iranian government or harm President Obama's efforts, and both are unacceptable. About that letter, Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat of Virginia, said, "I think Republicans have made it harder for us to approach this in a careful and bipartisan way." Mr. Kaine is a sponsor of a bill to review any removal of congressionally imposed sanctions on Iran. He added, "I regret that this partisan and nutty behavior makes people focus on politics and not substance." Iraqi troops and militias drove Islamic State insurgents out of the town of Al-Alam today, clearing a final hurdle before a planned assault on Saddam Hussein's home city of Tikrit in their biggest offensive yet against the ultra-radical group. If Iraq's Shiite-led government is able to retake Tikrit, it would be the first city taken back from the Sunni insurgents and would give it momentum in the next pivotal stage of their campaign to recapture Mosul, the largest city in the north. Today, a senior U.S. State Department official said that Russian tanks and heavy military equipment have crossed the Ukrainian border in the last few days in breach of a European-brokered ceasefire agreed on February 12. Comments by U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, Victoria Nuland, followed accusations by Ukraine and Western governments that Russia continues to send troops and weapons to support separatists in eastern Ukraine despite the ceasefire deal, a charge the Kremlin has denied. Eastern Ukraine and Crimea, the Black Sea Peninsula annexed by Russia a year ago, was suffering a reign of terror, Nuland told a congressional hearing on Ukraine, adding that the White House was still considering whether to arm Ukraine's military. The last few days has seen new transfers of Russian tanks, armored vehicles, heavy artillery, and rocket equipment over the border to the separatists, Nuland told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. In the coming days, not weeks, we need to see a complete ceasefire. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this has been your ThinkTech News for Tuesday, March 10th, 2015.
Good evening, it's February in Hawaii, and I'm Sachiko Sloma for ThinkTech Hawaii's Radar News. Radar News is the only news segment that invites you into the secret of what's going on our radar this month. Listen here to catch our 3 critical news stories for your eyes and ears only. Now to our first story. Implications of Radio Shack's bankruptcy. You'll soon have to buy all of the parts to fix your computer entirely online as hundreds of Radio Shack storefronts close this month. Radio Shack, founded in 1921 and the favorite store of hobbyists and the so-called makers market, officially is bankrupt this month after long attempts to reorganize failed. Falling from an annual sale of $6 billion in 1996 to half that in 2014, Radio Shack officially joins the rank of failed businesses like Tower Records, Sharper Image, and Blockbuster. Christopher Mims of the Wall Street Journal suspects that a decrease in leisure time for the average American worker is what hammered in the last nail for the company's bankruptcy. Radio Shack and Sprint are partnering to determine the future use of the current storefronts remaining. Our second story, let the robots do it. If you travel to Japan this summer, you can expect your room service to be manned almost entirely by robots at one hotel. The Henna Hotel, scheduled to open in Saseko, Nagasaki in July, will have more than 90% of its services given by robots like the one pictured. Yeah. Additionally, the hotel plans to utilize facial recognition instead of room keys, and company president Hideo Sawada says he seeks to make the most efficient hotel in the world. Will you feel safer in a hotel, though, that deems customer service and extraneous tasks better delegated to robots than humans? Does the management not care about caring enough to do it themselves? I don't know, but Henna Hotel will be a novelty for sure, but the success of it is ultimately in the customers' living in warm-blooded hands. Our final story, fixing nature with machines. Giant machines may not help you organize your recyclables this year, but they may attempt to fix your planet's atmosphere. February 10th, the National Academy of Science and other federal agencies organized a scientific panel calling for more intensive geoengineering research to counter greenhouse gas emissions. Waleed Abdullati, member of the panel and professor at the University of Colorado, posits that geoengineering may actually distract society from the necessary task of reducing the activities causing the warming in the first place. The panel is now calling for more research and modeling to understand the potential far-reaching effects. All right, and now for something completely different. Just to inspire you, man-made trees that can harness the power of the wind in your own neighborhood. French company New Wind designed a power generator for urban environments called the Wind Tree, which transforms smaller wind currents into kilowatts. The Wind Tree's 72 turbine arrow leaves rotate in the wind and together produce about enough power to heat a small home, fuel your lights, or charge an electric car. It ain't no garden gnome though, but when I heard about the Wind Tree, I thought I'd like to have it, but it's about like thousands of dollars and my dogs would probably bark at it. I'm already sure. I'm Sachiko Sloma for your Radar News on ThinkTech Hawaii. If you have any suggestions for next month's segment, send it on over on us to Twitter, and I'll see you later. Sayonara and shalom.
ThinkTech News is streamed live during the day. We broadcast both the daily news and radar news between our talk shows. Check out our revamped website to see more about our shows, our upcoming luncheons, and more.
ThinkTech broadcasts its talk shows live on the internet from noon to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon. If you missed a show or want to replay or share any show, they're all archived on YouTube.
Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links, or to join our email list and get these links and program advisories on our upcoming shows.
We also invite you to be part of our live audience at our downtown studio in Pioneer Plaza. Contact Jay at thinktechhawaii.com. Raise your awareness in every way on ThinkTech. Now, here's this week's ThinkTech commentary.
Have you thought about how we can pay for our growing government and for the services we have here in Hawaii? We've got the rail growing, we've got social services. One of the problems we have today is that thinking is often too much in the box. There are more than half a dozen measures at our legislature being considered for raising the general excise tax. Now think about that. If even half of them passed, we'd be paying an extraordinary surcharge on an already high tax. Do you realize that national studies have shown that we rank in the bottom quartile of states in terms of our tax policy, largely because our general excise tax taxes the people it means to help? For example, most states have already stopped using their GE tax to tax food and to tax medical services and medicine. Our state, no. And the people who are hit the most? One study tells us that the bottom 20% of the people in the state of Hawaii in terms of income pay 13% of their income on GE tax. Now think about that for a moment. Mayor Caldwell has said that one of the reasons we need the rail is for social justice, and I agree with that. That's an important value. But does it make sense to make those who pay the most in terms of GE tax pay for the rising costs of rail? I'm not here today to talk about rail or any other project, but to point out that as our legislature is at work in determining how to fund the things that we want, we should think about how we fund our households. We all have to sit down and say, can we afford this? And is this the best way in which to finance a project? I'm Keli'i Akina. I'm delighted every week to be with you on Ehana Kako on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I hope you'll tune in and watch all that we do here. ThinkTechHawaii.com. Until I see you again, aloha.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Okay, Chris, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like JFI Dale does. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
Definitely, Duke. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a guest or volunteer, or a producer or intern, and help us reach Hawaii.
Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech and for supporting tech, energy, diversification, and globalism in Hawaii. You can watch this show throughout the week and tune in next Sunday evening for our next important weekly episode. I'm Duke Oishi. Aloha, everyone.
And I'm Chris Lethem. Ahui ho.
Ow.